Focus on Headline. And let's take a look at what major issues are making the headlines today on Focus on Headline. For this, joining us in the studio, we have our usual Monday reporters in Kim Min-ji and Yoon Hae-jung. Guys, welcome back.
Good evening.
Good evening to you guys. Well, this year is now just about a little over 2 weeks old now. We've talked about a lot of things happening here and there. We're kind of wondering, when is North Korea's provocation going to resume once again? Well, we saw last time the intercontinental ballistic missile being shot last month. Well, we had North Korea's first provocation of the year as they successfully test-fired a hypersonic intermediate range ballistic missile, this using solid fuel propellants. Min-ji, you're going to start us off. Well, let's get the latest on North Korea's provocation.
Sure. So on the 15th, North Korea announced that they pulled off a successful test launch of a hypersonic intermediate range ballistic missile, the IRBM, using a new solid fuel propellant. So this achievement follows their announcement about 2 months ago regarding the successful creation of a high thrust solid fuel engine for IRBMs in November last year. Now, during that time, they conducted ground test blasts for the first and second stages of the engine. Now, it appears that they've taken that technology and put it into test with an actual hypersonic missile launch. According to North Korea's Missile General Bureau, the test aimed to confirm the gliding and maneuvering flight characteristics of the hypersonic combat vehicle. Now, the regime emphasized that the launch had no impact on neighboring countries' safety and was unrelated to the regional situation. And it also mentioned that it is just part of its regular activities to develop powerful weapons system. The North also did not disclose the key details such as the missile's altitude, range, or the transporter erector launcher, the TEL.
Yeah, again, when it comes to the hypersonic ballistic missile, this is a bit concerning here, and Min-ji's going to explain it a bit. But the big question now is, this is only at least according to the state-run Korean Central News Agency, right? From what I understand, the Joint Chiefs of Staff still analyzing the missile in itself, because North Korea 2 years ago, they said they successfully test-fired a hypersonic ballistic missile, and at the time it turned out they didn't have the technology, and in fact what they did test was not a hypersonic ballistic missile. But we've noticed that ever since last year, when they successfully, completed the development of its Hwasong-18 intercontinental ballistic missile, their ballistic missile technology is getting closer and closer and closer to being perfected. And now the big question is, are they able to perfect the intermediate range ballistic missile using hypersonic technology? But let's talk about the typical range of the IRBM. And because usually if it's any sort of threat or sort of message to, say, South Korea or Japan, they'll be shooting a short-range ballistic missile. Considering this is an intermediate-range missile, how much of a threat is this to, let's say, the United States?
Well, the IRBMs typically have a range of 3,000 to 5,000 kilometers. From Pyongyang, the distance is approximately 3,500 kilometers to Guam and around 6,000 kilometers to Alaska in a direct line. Guam hosts vital U.S. military resources, including B-52s, while Alaska is equipped with ground-based ICBM interceptors. Now, these hypersonic missiles can fly at speeds exceeding Mach 10, and making interception challenging. The maneuverability demonstrated in recent tests adds another layer of complexity. Now, these recent tests follows a series of hypersonic missile trials, with the most recent on January 11th. The North Korea claimed that the missile executed a strong turning maneuver of 240 kilometers, hitting a target at a distance of 1,000 kilometers. And as SJ mentioned, in September 2021, North Korea first test-fired the Hwasong-8, a newly developed hypersonic missile, and they announced the stability in the fuel system, hinting at a potential shift from liquid to solid fuel.
Yeah, again, and further analysis from, let's say, the Joint Chiefs of Staff a couple of years ago said that they actually did not have the proper hypersonic missile technology. Now, the reason why the hypersonic missile is a very dangerous one. Not only does it move at a very, very fast pace at 10 times the speed of sound, but it's also able to change direction mid-flight. And so when you're trying to intercept this, they could quickly maneuver the intercepted missile there, and which is why it poses a great deal of threat. And as we've seen, at least with the Russian technology that they have. I believe they have hypersonic missile technology, which is also capable of embedding nuclear warheads, which is scary. And I don't think North Korea has that technology, thankfully. Of course, South Korea, the U.S., and Japan all coming out to condemn North Korea's latest provocation. So, Haejung, tell us what the three countries had to say in regards to North Korea's recent provocations.
Right. South Korea's defense ministry claimed that Pyongyang's recent launch of the intermediate-range ballistic missile is a clear provocation, and they urged the North to stop immediately. The statement released by the South Korean Defense Ministry on Monday said North Korea's actions are a violation of the UN Security Council resolution prohibiting the use of ballistic missile technology. It added that the South Korean military is enhancing its ability for extended deterrence and strengthening its own response capabilities, and that under a firm joint defense posture with the United States, it will respond overwhelmingly to any direct provocations immediately and strongly until the end. Seoul's Unification Ministry also came out to say that the North Korean regime needs to wake from its vain expectations that these provocations will protect its regime and take the right path for the sake of its people and the future of the Korean Peninsula. And on Sunday, the U.S. State Department also condemned North Korea's latest ballistic missile launch as a violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions, while reiterating America's ironclad security commitment to South Korea and Japan. At the same time, it restated Washington's openness to diplomacy and called on the North to engage in dialogue. In the meantime, the top nuclear envoys of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan have condemned North Korea's latest launch as well. Kim Gon, South Korea's special representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, spoke by phone on Sunday to his U.S. and Japanese counterparts Chung Bak and Hiroyuki Namatsu. The envoys denounced the launch as a violation of the UN Security Council resolutions as well, pointing out the North's illicit provocations as the root causes of instability in the region, while emphasizing that their trilateral cooperation will bolster even further as North Korea escalates its provocations. Now, Minji will have more on this, but they also agreed to keep close tabs on North Korean Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee's visit to Russia this week amid deepening military cooperation between the two countries.
And we are going to talk exactly in regards to this, as we've been talking about for the past, almost 2 years now. Russia is very much isolated. North Korea has been isolated for many, many years now, and they don't have a whole lot of allies. Now, traditionally, because of their Soviet ties in the past and their communist ties, they are the few allies that they've seen. We've seen these summit talks between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin in Russia's Far East Russia last year, and we are seeing more meetings amongst the top officials, and as Haejung hinted, we're talking about now Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee leaving Pyongyang to go on a visit to Russia. We have the KCNA reporting the departure for January 15th. That's today. So let's get more on this, Minji.
Sure. So according to KCNA, Vice Foreign Minister Park Cheol-jun, along with Vladimir Topa, interim acting ambassador of the Russian embassy in North Korea, and Valery Isayenko, a military attaché, conveyed Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee to Pyongyang International Airport. Now, Choi's trip to Russia, organized at the invitation of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, is expected to last from January 15th to 17th, which is this Monday to Wednesday. Now, during this time, a meeting between North Korean and Russian foreign ministers is scheduled, and they're likely to focus on bilateral cooperation. Attention is concentrated on whether discussions will touch upon North Korea's alleged arms deal with Russia. Now, although the two nations are denying such cooperation, the West, including the United States, remains skeptical, claiming that North Korea has consistently provided weapons to Russia. Furthermore, the impending visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin to North Korea may also be on also be on the agenda, and Putin accepted an invitation from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during the North Korea-Russia summit in Russia in September last year. Now, this marks a significant diplomatic move, especially as Choi Sun-hee, who was promoted to foreign minister in June 2022, embarks on the first solo trip abroad.
I am very curious, though, right? Because there's a lot of evidence that shows that there is some sort of arms collaboration, arms deal between Russia and North Korea. But if you've seen some of the comments that are coming out from the UN Security Council meetings, they came out so strong, like it's lies. You guys have absolutely no proof. We're not doing this. We're not getting any weapons from North Korea, or we're not using. Russia's not using any of our weapons, and so forth. And you're going because they're so adamant that they haven't done it. It's like, really? Did you? But I mean, the evidence is there, right? They were able to find photos here and there. We do know that there's a large shipment of, I guess, although, again, containers, we can't see through the containers. Highly likely that they received a bunch of ammunitions here. But interesting stuff, and we'll have to figure out why Choi Sun-hee is going over to Russia this time. What kind of discussions are going to be held? Are they even going to reveal the contents of the discussion or the meetings? We'll also have to keep a close tab on that as well. North Korea is also pressing ahead with measures to disband its inter-Korean organizations, as we talked about before, while also stopping a radio station previously used to send encrypted messages to its spies in North Korea. That's some scary stuff. Haejung, tell us more about this.
As of Saturday, the North appears to have stopped broadcasting the state-run Pyongyang Radio and cut off access to its website. Now, Pyongyang Radio is known for broadcasting a series of mysterious numbers, presumed to be coded messages giving directions to its agents operating secretly in South Korea. The North resumed such broadcasts in 2016 after suspending them in the year 2000 when the two Koreas held their first historic summit. And the latest move comes after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un ordered readjusting and reforming its organizations in charge of inter-Korean affairs during a key Workers' Party meeting last month amid growing cross-border tensions. On Saturday, North Korea said it also held a meeting the previous day to decide to dissolve organizations in charge of civilian exchanges with the South, according to its state-run Korean Central News Agency. The news agency added that all relevant organizations will be readjusted, such as the North Side Committee for Implementing the June 15th Joint Declaration and the North Headquarters on the Pan-National Alliance for Korea's Reunification. The meeting also called for a new reunification policy based on the view that, quote, the South Korean puppets who have pursued only the collapse of the North's power and unification by absorption are the main enemy of the North Korea to be completely wiped out. North Korea has stepped up provocations after Kim defined inter-Korean ties as relations between two states hostile to each other and called for stepped-up preparations to suppress the whole territory of South Korea at the year-end ruling party meeting. Kim also called for a fundamental change in dealing with South Korea and instructed the disbandment of organizations in charge of inter-Korean affairs. As a follow-up measure, North Korean Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee led discussions early this month to dismantle the United Front Department, which is in charge of relations with the South. And today, North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly started off in North Korea, which is like Seoul's regular National Assembly meeting. Now, what experts are keeping an eye on is to see if there will be any amendments to laws on unification.
I think everyone will agree that right now inter-Korean relations have hit one of the lowest points since the end, or I should say the ceasefire, call for ceasefire on the Korean War back in 1953, and there's been some up and downs in relations right now, but things are not looking good at this point. We had many experts who said 2024 might not ever see any improvements on the front. Ironically, what some of the experts are saying is it may actually has a lot to do with the November U.S. presidential elections. And they're saying, ironically, if Trump does end up taking office once again, there could be a chance that inter-Korean talks could resume. But on the flip side, I mean, you have to understand, I mean, the Yoon administration has been very hawkish towards North Korea. And so even if Trump does end up coming back into office, like, will Seoul be willing to hold talks? We'll have to see, right? Let's move on and talk about the economy, because this is certainly a huge economic development. South Korea has unveiled plans to establish a semiconductor mega cluster in southern Seoul by 2047. The project aims to attract a total investment of 622 trillion won. That comes out to around 472 billion US dollars, with key players like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix taking a pivotal role. Let's get the details of this, Minji.
Sure. So the envisioned cluster, sprawling across various industrial zones in southern Gyeonggi-do province, is set to cover an extensive area of 21 million square meters, and the joint statement from the Industry and Science Ministries outlines a monthly production capacity target of 7.7 million wafers by 2030. The plan includes specific zones tailored for different aspects of the semiconductor industry. Pangyo will host exclusive zones for the fabless industry, while Hwasong, Yongin, Incheon, and Pyeongtaek will accommodate foundry and memory chip production facilities. Ansong is slated for an industrial zone catering to material, part, and equipment businesses, with research and development facilities in Gihung and Suwon. Samsung Electronics plans a substantial investment of 500 trillion won, or approximately 380 billion US dollars for the project, and this includes a 360 trillion won budget for 6 new fabs in Yongin and 120 trillion won for 3 new fabs in Pyeongtaek, alongside 3 research fabs in Gihung with an investment of 20 trillion won. SK Hynix, the second largest chip maker, is expected to allocate 122 trillion won, approximately 92 billion US dollars, to construct 4 new fabs in Yongin, according to the Industry Ministry. The government anticipates that this massive project will result in a world-class production capacity, focusing on cutting-edge products, including chips with a 2-nanometer process and high bandwidth memory. Now, in addition to the construction of the mega cluster, the government has pledged to support the semiconductor ecosystem by increasing the country's self-sufficiency in the supply chain of key material, parts, and equipment to 50% by 2030. This strategic move positions South Korea to take up 10% of the global market for non-memory chips by 2030. President Yoon Suk-yeol emphasized that this ambitious venture is expected to generate at least 3 million new high-quality jobs over the next 2 decades. He outlined the immediate plans, stating that a substantial investment of 158 trillion won, or about 120 billion US dollars, will be made within the next 5 years, resulting in the creation of 950,000 new direct and indirect jobs. He also highlighted the economic impact, emphasizing the potential for job creation and growth within the semiconductor sector.
Let's move on here. Potentially great news for everyone out there worried about high energy prices, inflation, and so forth. With the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday season ahead, believe it or not, we're going to be celebrating New Year's twice, right? Slew of measures being introduced to help ease financial burdens. We have exemption from electricity rate hikes, reduced interest payments, discounted food prices. These are some of the benefits that people can enjoy this year. Hejin, let's get the details of this.
Right. On Sunday, a number of measures were discussed during a meeting of senior officials from the government, the presidential office, and the ruling People Power Party. As part of efforts to support people's livelihoods this year, South Korea will be extending its electricity rate freeze for vulnerable groups. Around 3.65 million households will be eligible for the extension of the year-long rate hike freeze, which was implemented after the government raised electricity prices last May. And next month, around 400,000 small business owners and self-employed workers will be able to enjoy reduced interest on loans from non-bank financial institutions. This means that they can save up to 1.5 million Korean won or more than $1,000 just on interest payments. With these measures coming just ahead of the Lunar New Year, which falls on February 10th this year for Korea, the government will also be creating a new fund of just under $30 billion to support SMEs during the holidays. Another group that will be provided with support over the holiday period will be stall owners at traditional markets, with the total value of coupons issued that can be spent at stalls this year raised from 4 trillion won to 5 trillion won, or around $3.8 billion. And it's not just businesses that the government is supporting. People can buy train tickets for KTX and SRT trains at a discounted price for travel between February 9th to the 12th, which is the Lunar New Year holidays. There will also be a highway toll exemption during the same period. Prices of 16 food items that are typically used during memorial services during the Lunar New Year, such as apples and mackerel, will have bigger discounts. And as fruit prices have been climbing in South Korea, the government will be exempting trade tariffs for more types of fruit in order to import 300,000 tons of fruit and ensure the price of average products related to the holiday is lower than last year. Meanwhile, in Sunday's meeting, the ruling party also spoke for the need for concrete measures to ease the burden of college tuition fees for students.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these, to be honest with you, I can't really feel the impacts of the changes. I'm not a small business owner, so I don't know about this. I don't take the KTX or the SRT to go anywhere. I stay put. But I did notice that, last Chuseok, because I don't know if you guys buy fruits, but, when you have a kid and a pregnant wife who all they want to do is eat fruits, it's how expensive it is.
Very expensive.
But back before last year's Chuseok, I did realize, because the government did also push for cheaper discounts on the fruits and agriculture, right, the leading up to Chuseok. And the price were so much lower. And the problem is that once Chuseok holiday was done and over with, prices jumped back up. And so, this is around the time when there's a lot of gifting of fruits and things like that. And it can certainly take a huge burden on all the people out there gathering for the Seollal or the Lunar New Year holidays. So good to see measures like this put in place here. Let's now talk about domestic politics. It's fun right now. The political landscape in South Korea, it's seeing a significant shift. We're seeing the so-called third-party movement gaining momentum, the anticipation of the upcoming general elections. We have DP lawmakers who opposed the the anti-Lee Jae-myung faction, right? And they call themselves the Principles and Common Sense, I believe. Initially there were 4 lawmakers, but there were 3 lawmakers who left the DP and created this new political party. Minji, tell us more about this.
Sure. So lawmakers of the Principles and Common Sense, which is a group within the DP that opposes party leader Lee Jae-myung, marked a historic moment by launching a new party. Roughly translated into English as the Future Grand Coalition, this new party is led by 3 lawmakers who left the main opposition DP. A launching ceremony for the preparation committee on the launch of a new party was held at the National Assembly, emphasizing their commitment to dismantle the entrenched political privileges of both parties. Representative Cho Eung-cheon takes the helm as the new party's leader, with lawmaker Kim Jong-min serving as the party chair and third-party coordinator, and lawmaker Lee Won-uk as the secretary general. Notably, the ceremony was attended by key figures like former DP Representative Lee Na-kyung, Reform Party Chairman Lee Jun-seok, New Choice Co-Chairman Kim Tae-seop, and Korea's Hope Representative Yang Hyang-ja. The possibility of concrete alliances with these figures adds intrigue to the unfolding political developments. Now, simultaneously, the New Future Party, spearheaded by former leader Lee Nak-yeon, is set to launch its preparatory committee on January 16th. Chairman Lee has called for a big tent approach, inviting a broad spectrum of voices to join the movement. Chairman Lee Jun-seok expressed his desire to build a big house instead of a tent, and emphasized that this should not be something that is temporary. A three-way meeting with Representative Kim Jong-min, co-founder of the Preparation Committee of the Future Grand Coalition, further underscores the collaborative spirit among these emerging political parties. As the DP's Public Affairs Committee enters nomination mode, the fate of active lawmakers facing rejection in the upcoming screening process has also become a point of interest. Now, the question of whether they will enter the third zone aligning with these new parties adds an intriguing dimension to the evolving political landscape ahead of the general election. Meanwhile, Representative Ryu Ho-jung of the Justice Party announced her departure from the party to join a new political party, the New Choice Party. Her seat is expected to be succeeded by Yang Kyung-gyu, former chairman of the Korea Confederation of Trade Unions.
I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I've been following Korean politics for the past 10 plus years now. Okay, I've only been in Korea for about 14 years now. But this is a lot of changes. I don't think I've ever seen something like this happen upcoming leading up to the general elections. Ryu Ho-jung, by the way, one of the most vocal members of the Justice Party. If you remember what she was trying to push for the legalization of tattoos, right? Mm-hmm. Because currently in Korea, unless it's done by a medical professional, all tattoos are illegal. And so I think she did something where she got a tattoo on her back, and she came to the parliament wearing a dress with an open back and it wasn't. Many conservatives did not like that action, but the big thing is now going to be Lee Nak-yeon, right? There's a lot of questions whether or not Lee Nak-yeon was actually going to join the Principles and Common Sense lawmakers, or that the three lawmakers were going to join Lee Nak-yeon's political force. But the fact that the ceremony was attended by not only Lee Nak-yeon but also Lee Jun-seok, I think they're really going at it right now to really abolish this whole two-party. They call it the two-party monopoly system, right? And they're saying that we should no longer have a political system where there's only run by two parties, and we should start introducing the third party. But we're not talking about third parties here. It's third, fourth, fifth, sixth parties. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on here. As we mentioned, there's some 40 elections, whether it be general or presidential elections happening in 40 different countries. And the Democratic Progressive Party's Lai Ching-te won the Taiwan presidential elections over on Saturday with slightly over 40%. I think it was 40.05% or something. But the ruling party failed to hold on to the parliamentary majority, which could, depending on how you put this, right? A lot of people say, checks and balances, kind of check them in place, but it's a little bit different over in Taiwan right now. Hae-jung, let's get the latest on the Taiwanese presidential elections over the weekend.
Right. The presidential contest on Saturday was a three-way race among candidates from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or the DPP, which China describes as a serious threat, and the main opposition party / pro-Beijing Kuomintang, or the KMT, and the smaller Taiwan People's Party, or the TPP. Lai Ching-te, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party leader, also the Taiwanese vice president, becomes the next president, defeating his opponent, Hua Yo-wi, in the KMT and the Ko Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party. The victory represents an unprecedented democratic milestone, the first time a political party in Taiwan has won a third straight presidential election. This also marks the DPP's first time to grasp 12 consecutive years in power and the party's 38-year history. However, the Democratic Progressive Party lost its majority in the legislature, and no one party will have enough votes to rule by itself. Looking into the numbers of Taiwan's election, some 14 million people, or 72% of eligible voters, turned to vote. So it's a very big portion of the total population. According to Taiwan's Central Election Commission, the gap between the front runner and the runner-up was about 920,000 votes. Lai Ching-te only winning 40%, like you said, of the ballot, which is roughly about 5.59 million votes. Now, this is likely to put some pressure on the new government going forward. The China-friendly opposition party, KMT's Huo You-wi, won 4.67 million votes, or 33.5% of the votes. And Ko Wen-je of the TPP received 3.69 million votes, or 26.5% of the ballot. In the meantime, no party has secured a majority in the legislature. The previous main party, the DPP, lost 10 seats. The KMT gained 14 seats and the TPP gained 3 seats. And over the previous 8 years, the DPP's control of both the executive and legislative branches of the government gave the party greater ability to pass bills and effect meaningful change. Now, during a speech, Lai said his win on Saturday is a victory for the global community democracies. He noted that Taiwanese people have successfully resisted external forces' attempts to interfere in the election, hinting at the wide range of tactics used by China during the months-long presidential campaign. And reiterating his commitment to maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, Lai expressed his willingness to engage with Beijing on the basis of dignity and parity.
You know, what's interesting with this, again, I think some people outside of Taiwan had expected maybe a landslide victory for Lai, right? Considering the geopolitical situation right now in Taiwan, that of course, many Taiwanese people who are seeking independence from China would vote for Lai. And I believe when Tsai Ing-wen won the presidential election 4 years ago, I think it was like something like, she garnered like 65 or more than 65% of the total vote, that's considered a landslide victory. But for this one, are the voters worried about maybe some repercussions from China? Is that the reason why there was a relatively lower figure with this? Well, all those questions we'll ask with the expert in the second half of the program for our listeners out there. Do stick around for that. Let's go over to the Middle East because tensions are certainly escalating over there as the U.S. has been launching a series of strikes against the pro-Iranian Yemeni Houthi rebels, raising concerns of a potential escalation in the already volatile region. Minji, let's get more on this.
The U.S. initiated another round of airstrike on the 12th following the first round on nearly 36 Houthi rebel positions just the day before. The secondary target was a Houthi radar station struck by the U.S. using Tomahawk missiles. The reason cited was the perceived threat to maritime traffic in the Red Sea, with hints of possible additional airstrikes in the future. President Joe Biden stated that if Houthi rebels persist in their actions, the U.S. will respond alongside its allies. The Houthis claimed the airstrikes caused no damage or casualties, issuing warnings of widespread retaliation. In a concerning development, the rebels fired an anti-ship ballistic missile at a merchant ship in the Gulf of Aden, prompting increased military exercises and vows of retaliation. In response, the U.S. government tightened sanctions on the Houthi rebels' financial support, targeting 2 companies from Hong Kong and the United Arab Emirates, along with 4 ships for allegedly aiding the Houthis and Iran. But the U.S. emphasized that it does not want a full-scale proxy war with Iran, seeking to prevent further escalation. In addition, meanwhile, while Iran condemns the U.S. airstrikes, it also remains wary of an all-out war, echoing the sentiment expressed by the U.S. government. The likelihood of widespread conflict across the Middle East may not seem imminent, but provocations from the Houthi rebels on other pro-Iranian militants are expected to intensify. According to the U.S. Central Command social media X account, on January 14th at approximately 4:45 p.m., an anti-ship cruise missile was fired from Iranian-backed Houthi militant areas of Yemen toward USS Laboon, which was operating in the southern Red Sea. The missile was shot down by U.S. fighter aircraft.
Let's go over to Denmark this time. Certainly a major news that I think was kind of overshadowed by some of the other news out there. But Denmark's ushering in a new era on Sunday as King Frederik X ascended to the throne after his mother, Queen Margaret II, after she formally signed the abdication, ending her 52-year reign as Denmark's longest-serving monarch. Certainly didn't get as much coverage, maybe like in the UK, but certainly major news over there. Haejun, let's get the latest on this and round this out here.
The formal transfer of power occurred at a meeting of the Council of State at Christiansborg Palace in Copenhagen, where thousands of people gathered to bid farewell to Margrethe after she became the first Danish monarch in nearly 900 years to voluntarily relinquish the throne. Margrethe, aged 83, surprised the public when she announced her abdication in a live address on New Year's Eve. She cited health issues like the major back surgery she underwent last February, saying that she would step down, stunning a nation that had expected her to live out her days on the throne, as is the tradition in the Danish monarchy. A cheerful crowd of supporters filled the route as King Frederik, aged 55, traveled to the castle in a motorcade, followed by Queen Margrethe II as she rode in a gold carriage being escorted to the Christiansborg Castle. More than 100,000 people gathered in front of the castle as they awaited the historical moment. Queen Margrethe II signed a declaration of abdication as Crown Prince Frederik became King Frederik X of Denmark. The Queen appeared emotional herself and said, "God save the King," after she put down her signature to the Council of State, handed over the throne, and then exited the room. And Denmark, one of the oldest monarchies across the globe, does not have a coronation ceremony. Instead, the new king and queen made a public appearance on the balcony of the palace, a tradition in place since the Constitution of 1849. And Frederik X said in his first speech as king that my hope is to become a unifying king of tomorrow. Under Denmark tradition, each new sovereign adopts a royal motto as a guiding principle for their reign. Frederik's motto is United, Committed for the Kingdom of Denmark.
All right, there you have it, guys. Thank you very much for your reports today. Have a fantastic rest of your night, and we'll see you guys again.
Thank you.
You can listen to Korea Now with me, SJ Lee, by downloading the Arirang Radio application or tune in online by visiting www.arirangradio.com. So make sure you tune in Mondays through Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Korea time.